Hey, it's Tim from OKR Quickstart. So you're considering embedding OKR and you're looking at how can I get maximum buy-in with all my teams? Because honestly, this is one of the number one things that actually makes your OKR framework stick or fall over. So I've made every mistake in the book along the journey of applying OKRs across hundreds of businesses with hundreds of people. And I'm going to give you some shortcuts today that are going to get massive engagement and massive buy-in. Going to be 3 themes we're going to cover, and this is a super short video. It's only 3 minutes, so we're going to cover a lot of ground. So number 1, unsurprisingly, we want to capture the why behind OKR. Why we're introducing OKRs and why now. We want to apply that at the organization level. Why is it important today to be introducing this? We then want to think about how does it benefit the teams? What is it for the teams and how do they get more value within the organization using OKRs? We then got to play into the personal desires. What's in it for me, the individual? We want to think about every person in the business and how's it going to help them? So what's in it for the business? What's in it for the individual? And what's in it for the team? Cover those 3 areas off and you're going to be looking pretty good. Now, we want to get into really starting to set up a framework that's going to make it successful and easy for people to follow. So this is the second point I want to cover. Create an OKR framework that people understand that they can go and apply with their teams. Make sure they've got the right education and understanding. Give them guidance on things like when do we set our OKRs? How do we align to the broader business? What sort of cadence are we going to be setting our OKRs at? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? But also, what sort of cadence do we track our goals? Do we do weekly OKR tracking? Do we do monthly? Do we do it less than that? There is lots of different options, but you want to create a framework that's easy for people to understand and that we have a champion within every team that can lead that new process. So again, clarity on the why, having a champion in every team that it can embed that framework and a clear framework for them to apply, but that's not all. The last point we need to consider is how do we actually tailor the framework so it works for each and every team, because you can't come up with one size fits all. And this is where I like to come up with a process of consent. It's actually called the consent process and is an incredible way to get engagement and really tailor the OKR framework to every team. So we start off proposing the approach, and that's where I was talking about earlier. We have a structure and a standard process. The team can then look through that amongst each other and start to review. And when I say the team, I mean every team in the business, and talk about, would this work for us? What wouldn't work? How would we need to change to make it work? So that's where we start to adjust the framework. Finally, we give consent and say, are we happy with the structure that we've come up with? We might have tweaked some things around the edges, around what was sort of suggested by the business, but we might want to make some little adjustments that work just for us. Now, if the team doesn't give their consent, they can't just veto it and go, nope, we're not doing OKRs. They've got to come up with an alternative approach. What are we going to do differently that's going to work? Is it OKRs or is it a slightly different approach? That's all part of the conversation. Generally what you'll find is they're still going to want to do OKRs, but they're going to make sure it works for them and absolutely drives insane amount of value for them. So if you get absolute OKR buy-in across the business, it's going to drive huge value for the business, but it's also going to drive huge value for each individual team, and that creates an unstoppable force.